we wanted to lean into today is something that's really unique to our time right now.
Yep.
And that's what we refer to as the golden handcuffs. Welcome to episode 3 of the Anchored in Real Estate podcast. I'm Johnny Dugan. I've got my co-host here, Cody Chimbars, aka Anchorman, aka Mr. President.
Oh,
Missed that one earlier.
That's okay.
And so we've talked a bunch in the first couple of episodes. We assume by now we've got a really good fan base, probably rabid fan base by this point, by episode 3.
Yeah.
Definitely binging the episodes. So, big expectations here.
No pressure.
No pressure. But in our previous episodes, we talked about, there's a lot of decision making in real estate. And part of it's, when do I get in? We've covered that. Jumping off the fence, we understand pent up demand. We talked about market forces, market crashing, those kinds of things. So check those out in the previous episodes. But what we wanted to lean into today is something that's really unique to our time right now.
Yep.
And that's what we refer to as the golden handcuffs. And sometimes you hear golden, you think, the Golden Girls, like old people. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that daggum low interest rate that we all love. And sometimes as realtors now we love to hate.
Yes.
So Cody, tell us what the golden handcuffs are.
Golden handcuffs. I don't know if there's an actual definition. Maybe it's realtor speak, maybe it's just industry speak, but it's the idea that you've got an interest rate somewhere around that 3%, maybe even lower. And, with interest rates where they're at now, you choosing not to upgrade or downsize or whatever, because you have a very, very favorable interest rate. Some would say free money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we think it's part of what's driving a slower market right now. There's a lot of other forces, but that's one of them. We see a lot of people say, I don't want to move because my payment will go up for effectively the same house. Or if I want to buy a little bit more house because my family's growing, my payment is going to double when I'm only buying a 10% or 20% more home.
Yeah.
And so we certainly understand that. It's hard. It's really hard to get around that. But part of what we want to talk about is saying, how can you overcome it? Because it's called golden handcuffs for a reason, because you're handcuffed. You're not moving, not because you don't want to, but you've got a good interest rate, and might give you a favorable payment. But you're literally now at the mercy of rather than size up in home like you want or downsize in home like you want. You go, well, I'll just stick this out because I've got this favorable interest rate.
Yep.
And we certainly get that. And that's why we don't push people to do something that's going to put them in the poorhouse because because we can get a sale.
Right.
The low interest rate is favorable. We're calling it favorable because you talked about before, previous episode. You said it's like free money.
Yeah.
And there's when the interest rates are in the 3s, the 2 1/4 or 2 3/4 3s, and all that, that's certainly attractive.
Yeah.
However, we definitely also know that real estate market and life is cyclical. And there's a lot of people that have these handcuffs that would really rather be in another place. Whether it's, everybody's moved out and I don't need 3,800 square feet anymore. Or I've had the second child and this 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo isn't working for us anymore. So it totally stands to reason that moving is what you want to do, but you're handcuffed by the low interest rate. So what we also talked about, though, is like any other move, first thing you need to do is understand your affordability. Mm-hmm. So if we can prognosticate a little bit that the 3% is never going to happen again, would you agree with that?
Never. It will never happen.
It should never happen again.
Should not.
It should. It would be something on the scale of COVID, worldwide collapse to get back to 3%.
Yeah.
Even to get back into the 4s would be something really significant. And we had mentioned before, in order to do that, you need a bad, a bad market in general. We're in a recession.
Economy in general.
Yeah, economy in general.
Yeah.
And so leaning into, I kind of need to would rather make a move. How do we overcome the golden handcuffs. We start with affordability. So tell people where do they need to start, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I think, a lot of people, and the news especially, has been doing a phenomenal job of advertising where the interest rates are currently at. I mean, you and I track the interest rates pretty much daily, right? Mortgage News Daily. So if anyone's watching and you want to know what the interest rate is doing, Mortgage News Daily, it's a free app. They don't charge anything. But where do you start? I think you start with, like we talked about in episode 2, you got to start with a lender, right? Like, what does a $500,000 house look like with a 6% interest rate, right? And, I talked about it a little bit on the last episode where, I have a very large home, and I was only able to buy that in 2020 because, the way the market was, and I have a 2.75 interest rate. So a 5,000 square foot house is costing me $1,700. But in the current market with a 6% interest rate, we'd be looking like $3,500. So I would have to personally look at, well, am I either selling that house or, can I afford, because the payment is so low, could I afford to keep that house?
So option 1.
And
option 1, keep the house.
Keep it as a rental. And then if you can afford it, go and see what you would qualify for while keeping that house. Now, one of the things that I ran into, because I ended up keeping my first house that we bought, is you've got to be able to qualify for that mortgage, because I didn't have any renter in there. I literally moved out of that house and into the new house. And so, what my lender said, well, we can't count any income. We can't wash that note, that payment, because we don't have a year's worth of rental transcripts, right? And so, but I was able to afford it because I refinanced that first house from a 4.25 down to a 2.75. My mortgage payment went from $1,000 to $750.
Right.
So I was able to afford a $1,700 payment. But one way you could do that is just by starting and saying, hey, can I afford this payment, and can I afford to upgrade?
And the lender will sort that for you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you say, hey, this is what I'm considering. I've got this great interest rate on a pretty nice house, but the house doesn't suit me anymore. I think maybe I go ahead and just rent that out, so I'm keeping that the value of the low interest rate ultimately. And then just, can I afford to, especially if you're downsizing, there's a really good chance if you've got yourself a favorable payment now because of your low interest rate and you're buying down a house, you might very well be able to afford that.
Right.
And then you'll get the rental income. When I say afford, I mean qualify. You'll get the rental income to help cover the cost of that mortgage.
Right. And that essentially that mortgage is net zero or net even.
Right.
But I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that, it's payment, right? Like if I were to take my house and generously appraise it at $500,000, paid $287 for it. So I gained $120,000 in equity. Okay. And I sell it for $500. Now I lose my interest rate, right? But what came with that interest rate was this increased value in my home. Right. So now I pay $287. Could I go out and buy a $500,000 home?
Right.
And then take that equity that I accrued in the last 5 years, $120,000. Well, now I'm looking at a $380,000 loan.
Right.
So a $380,000 loan at 6% interest rate is not that astronomical number. More palatable, right? And so, we typically, when we have clients that come to us and say, well, I don't want to move, or this is what I have. I've got a 2.5 interest rate. The lowest I've heard is 2.25.
Yeah. Probably bought that down, but that's okay.
It was a VA.
Oh, really?
It was a VA client.
Well, good for them.
2.25. Yeah. It's like, man. So, but we start and say, well, look at how much your value increased. And basically we tell them you're just transferring the equity into a new home. So that's one way that I've been helping my clients kind of break those golden handcuffs off, is just looking at the bigger picture and really zooming out, not focusing on interest rate, not focusing on price, but what did I gain in the last 5 years
Right.
that I can now apply to this move? Maybe it's lateral, maybe it's up, down,
Key
whatever.
term you just used, focusing on the gain,
Yeah.
not on the loss.
Yeah.
People will tie their identity to their interest rate.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Got me at 275.
Say that again.
People will tie their identity to their interest rate.
Yeah.
And they feel like if they're paying a higher interest rate, they're losing in life.
Yes.
And that's not true.
Yeah.
If you've done all the right things and you've got yourself good credit, you're going to get the best interest rate possible. The real estate market's going to keep going up, and then your equity is going to keep building. You mentioned payment. It's all about that payment and I feel like I'm giving something up, some asset, where the asset is the interest rate alone,
Yep.
to take a worse interest rate, and I'm just throwing money away. When I understand the value of the low interest rate and the low payments and all that stuff. Totally do. However, the idea that you're losing something is kind of the key. And you go, well, I'm losing $1,000 a month because my payment went up $1,000 a month. But you're gaining a home you enjoy. And so the tricky thing with the handcuffs is when you say, I don't want to move because I don't want to give up my interest rate, you're saying, I'm going to live here forever because of my interest rate. Because it's never coming back down to a competitive to 3% interest rate.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to have to either tell yourself once it gets to a certain number that might actually happen. So if you said 5, I'd say, okay, it might get back into the 5s or, maybe even the high 4s. It might do that someday. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is I'm so tied to this interest rate that I want my family to live not how I want to hold on to that interest rate. You're saying I'll live here forever if that's what it takes to not have a higher payment.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of a mentality. Again, I've been in the market long enough. I've had interest rates at 6.5. I've had them, from 6.5 down to the 3s because that was the going market. Mm-hmm. I rode out the 2008 thing. So a good example here is when I first bought my we'll say second home. That's the house I was in the longest. It was a 6.5%. Okay. That's about what it is today. It was a good rate for the time. And then not too long after that, the market crashed. Mm-hmm. And I go, golly, you got a huge interest rate. Mm-hmm. And the market crashed. And I go, and the good news of that whole story is I still sold it for 3 times what I bought it for. I walked away with 100 and whatever thousand worth of equity because I just kept making my payment and the market came back after the gnarly crash of 2008. And so the point is I had a higher interest rate. There was a terrible crash in between and I still made out like a bandit. I still got great value for my home. So the point is it will boil down to affordability. Yeah. But if it's time for you to move, it's time for you to move if you can afford it.
Right.
I think there was an article, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and that circled on the socials a little bit. It said, Atlanta's turning into a buyer's market if you can afford it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is the values aren't coming down. If you can't afford it, then the concessions and all that stuff.
Right.
But the handcuffs thing, you have to really visualize that. Your hands are behind your back, and it's golden handcuffs because you've got a good asset that's got you stuck.
Yep. Yeah.
If it's time to downgrade or time to upgrade for your family, the interest rate shouldn't be the be all and all.
Yeah.
What you can afford should be.
Right.
Because once you're into it and you're making that payment, and by the way, interest is tax deductible and the market's going to keep going in value. And if you upgrade in house, now you're appreciating on a higher value home. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, a higher payment feels terrible. Mm-hmm. Yes, I don't want to short circuit that idea.
Yeah.
However, getting over the mental hump of I used to have a 3% and now it's a 6%, it just is what it is. You can't, so long as you can afford it.
Right.
We'll encourage people to take on more than they can honestly chew. But if you're otherwise stuffing your kids into the dresser because there's no other rooms for them, then, then it's probably time to reevaluate, can I take on a higher percentage rate?
Right. Yeah, and at the end of the day, sometimes it's just a perspective shift.
Yeah.
And the goal of this podcast is to give you a different perspective that you may not be considering, that you may be one of those proud people that have that, sub 3% interest rate, and you're like, I'm never letting it go. And you may not. Right. And if that's your perspective or if that's your prerogative, so be it.
Yeah.
Right? So be it. But the other thought is that interest rates are cyclical.
That's right.
Right? I mean, when I bought in 2015, I had 4.25. I had no idea that in 5 years I'd have the ability to refinance that home into a 2.75.
Right.
I had no idea.
That's right.
And actually, one lender told me I couldn't refinance it because it was a second home and it wasn't far enough away from my primary. But I was able to do it. But I think, we get so caught up in, we got to stay here or we can't afford it. And then we lose the future perspective of, well, who knows what's going to happen?
That's right.
What happens if the rates do go down to...
Well, one of our favorite sayings is, marry the house, date the rate.
Right.
I mean, people refinance all the time.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
If you think today's rates are ridiculous, they're not historically ridiculous. My parents had ridiculous 14, 16% rates in their time. That sounds, especially by today's terms, that sounds ridiculous. But the truth is, if you think it's ridiculous, but you can afford it to make the proper move for your family, then you'll say, hey, when the rates do go down, I'll refinance.
Right.
And I'll bring my payment back down, or I'll use the cash for something else. It's just kind of the whole point here with the golden handcuffs thing is just don't let the interest rate be the decider.
Yes.
If your life really dictates you should be moving on, then you should be moving on.
Right.
Especially if you can afford it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned it about the interest rates and needing to move. At the end of the day, you've got to do what you need to do, right?
That's right.
And so whether that means that you need to upgrade because you're expecting or you're downsizing, you have a job relocation, you're going to be okay if you follow the principles that we taught in the last episode. Don't overbuy.
Yeah.
And it may be painful for a season. It may be more than you're comfortable with. And I can tell you that even the houses when I first bought in 2015, I was uncomfortable. I wasn't sure. I mean, when I originally had my conversation with the lender, they anticipated around $1,150, which would have been over half of my monthly take home.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I was making $2,100 a month.
Yeah.
After insurance and all that. But I was concerned. And we get to the closing table and he says, the final numbers changed and we got down to $950.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, well, I've been affording $950 in an apartment.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I think a lot of times fear holds a lot of people back, right? It's that fear. It's the unknown. It's the what if. And I can tell you that if I lived in a what if version of my life, I would not be doing what I'm doing. Right. I wouldn't be getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Because it's the world's scary, right?
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Especially with everything going on, right now.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
But going back to real estate, do what you need to do for you, your family. We're not discriminating any protected class here. I'm just saying, a lot of times families will come to us and say, hey, we need to upgrade.
Yeah.
I'll be in that position if we have another one, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey,
That's right.
We got a triple bunk right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I don't know how much more we can make a quad bunk, but taking that perspective, shifting it off of, hey, I'm not moving because I have this interest rate, but look at it from the long-term solution.
That's right.
And buy what you can afford, and it won't feel so painful. It won't feel so scary. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the graphic of the handcuffs is very true. It's what there are people that want to be doing something and they can't because they're kind of handcuffed to this rate or to this house or to this payment. Yeah. And another funny part is you had a lower interest rate, so you got yourself you got a nice favorable payment. So then you went out and bought the big truck. And so you got your $1,800 house payment, which you're like, oh man, I'm making out like a bandit. So now I can afford that $900 F-250 payment.
It's more nine. Listen,
Oh no,
we're in territory. We might be offending some listener right now, but keep going. It ain't $950 for an F-250.
Yeah.
We're probably 13, 14.
Yeah, right.
$1,500
That's
for
right.
an F-250.
Yeah. And so that's where you still got to take some responsibility, So the average person will spend everything they make, and their lifestyle will ascend to max out their. So if what we're saying is, if there's a piece of advice here, if you do have that favorable interest rate, the way to take advantage of that is to take the extra money and do something positive with it.
Yes. Because
if you're not doing that, then you're not benefiting from the payment. You're not benefiting from that interest rate, because you're taking, and I use polite terms here, you're letting the rest of the money is just evaporating away.
Yes.
If you're not doing something productive with it. So, I don't want to wax philosophical too much, but the idea being, if you've got that favorable payment, let's look at the rest of what you're doing with your money and see if there's a way to have something better for your family. And it's going to involve probably a higher mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
But a little bit of a responsibility there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you can afford it. That's it. We're, and who knows what the rates will do.
Yeah.
They may come down in Q1 of 26. They may go up. I can't imagine they would go up, because I think, like we had talked about in the previous episode, there is this pent-up demand, but life happens. You're going to have to move. I mean, here's the crazy thing. I've seen people, and maybe not crazy, maybe this is a different perspective that you're not aware of. We have seen people refinance and go out and get home equity line of credit on these low interest rate houses.
Yep.
But guess what? They're taking out $100,000 and they're going to put it in the house.
Yep.
What do you think that interest rate's at?
It's 6. Yeah.
6, 7.
Yeah.
So it's, at the end of the day, if you have these golden handcuffs on and you're considering, or maybe you're in that position, you're in that planning phase of, hey, I need to do something. Reach out to one of us and have that conversation, and we can point you in that right direction. Unsolicited. We're going to tell you what's best for you. We're going to give you the facts. We're going to advise you, and you're going to make that decision. Yeah.
We call it ground truth.
Yeah.
Let's get to ground truth. Let's get the real numbers out there, and let's really understand where you're at. Yeah. And if it's best for you not to move, you shouldn't move.
Yeah, we're going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Stay put.
I tell you what, I say this all the time. I'm in the business. I hate moving.
Yeah, me too.
So it's hard for me to tell somebody you should the tiebreaker is usually not, well, should I move or should I not? God, moving is tough. Yeah. So it's hard for me to give advice. Oh, you should give all that up and go move. It's going to have to be kind of an overwhelming, it just makes sense. Yeah. It makes the most sense, and you can afford it.
Right.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. So as we come to a close on episode 3, what do you want to leave the viewers with, or the listeners?
Yeah, so this episode was about golden handcuffs. That interest rate, it was just an anomaly in time. And if you've got one, great. There's lots of ways to be taking advantage of it, but also understand, if your life has moved on from that, it's time to move on from that. Don't be locked into position just because of an interest rate. Kind of get over the mental hump of it. And make affordability the bottom line. What's best for your family, and affordability the bottom line, not the deal I'm getting. And that's what's going to be the best for you. And don't focus on what you might be losing. Focus on what you will be gaining potentially. If it's whether that be a better home or a faster accruing equity position, etc. There's lots to gain in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Shorter commute.
Yeah.
Pool in the
things
backyard.
That matter to you. Don't make your interest rate the most important thing.
That's it.
Motivator in your life.
That's it.
Yeah.
Interest rates fluctuate every single day.
All the time.
So
that's it.
You delaying could cause you to enter into a market where there's multiple buyers because the interest rates are favorable.
That's it. So I mentioned before, I'm not gonna make a change. I know we're wrapping this up. I'm not gonna make a change, and so you're kind of making this decision that, I'm just going to live in here forever. The home that is best for you is not going to be cheaper next year. To make a move, you're saying that's another point of I'm making this decision forever because the better home for me is never going to be cheaper than it effectively is now.
Yep.
And so I'm just delaying things. Now, maybe it's right for you because of affordability, etc. But if you think, well, I'm going to take advantage of this rate as long as I can. Well, but that house, that $500,000 house that you love now that you might be able to afford now is going to be $550,000 in the 3 years or whatever. And that is just going to keep getting further and further away from you. So that's what I'm saying. I get it. I understand the favorable payment. I don't have an argument against the payment element. My argument is if it's best for your family, don't hold your whole family back because you love having a low interest rate.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
That's it.
If you like the content, like and subscribe, comment on anything. If you don't like Cody's shirt, by the way, it's a great shirt. We want to hear from you. And if you have questions, we want to answer them for you. And we have not laid into our opinions yet. We've been educational, but you're going to hear a lot more from us soon. Let us know how you're feeling about it. Talk soon.